In this video, I'm going to explain to you how to carry a conversation, and I'll also answer part of the question of what you should talk about when you're talking to a girl during the hours of the connection phase when you're getting to know each other. Now, this video, it's going to be more foundational. I'm going to talk about the fundamentals, things that you definitely need to know before I can get into the more advanced techniques for creating connection. In this video, I'm going to try to solve the problem of running out of things to say. This is a problem that many shy and introverted guys have. It's a problem that I myself had for so long, back when I had more extreme shyness, is I would always find that in some social situations, I would just not know what to talk about. It would feel like my mind just went blank, and literally nothing would come to my mind to say. So in this video, I'm going to explain to you why this happens, and some easy techniques that you can use in order to carry conversations easily and naturally, and get her more involved in the conversation too. So the first thing you need to know about running out of things to say is that a lot of guys who are shy think that they don't know what to say because their life is too boring and they're not interesting enough. But usually this isn't true. If you think about it, there's probably one or two people, or maybe you have some close group of friends who you actually can talk to very easily. See, I often get guys who come to me and they say, I run out of things to say when I'm talking to a girl. But then when I ask them, what happens when you're talking to a friend, or when you're talking to, a close friends that you know well, then they'll often tell me that, when I'm with my close friends, then I'm very talkative and, I talk and talk and talk. So it's not that you have a boring life or that you have nothing to talk about, because you have decades of life experience that you could talk about. Anybody who's watching this video probably has different hobbies, different interests. You have different favorite TV shows or books or music, or anything else that you could talk about to people. So it's not really possible for you to run out of things to say. You have all these different opinions that you could express to people. So the reason why you run out of things to say is it really comes down to other issues. For example, the first one is that you're probably filtering what you say too much around the girls that you're attracted to because you're trying to impress her. And this problem really comes down to inferiority. See, the reason why you may be able to talk to your close friends easily is because you feel equal to them, you don't feel inferior, and you're not trying to impress them. So when you're with your close friends, if something pops into your head, you'll probably just say it, even if it isn't that interesting or that funny, or even if it's kind of a stupid remark. Meanwhile, when you're talking to a girl who you find attractive and something pops into your head, then more often than not, you'll probably censor it. You'll probably have the comment pop into your head, but then subconsciously you'll think, oh, that's not cool enough to say, or oh, that's not funny or interesting enough. Back when I had social anxiety, I found that in situations like when I was talking to an attractive girl, or even when I was in a group conversation, I would often be very quiet and I wouldn't speak up very often. And what that really came down to is that I had too high of a bar for what was okay to say. Because I felt insecure or inferior, I thought that my comments always had to be funny or interesting or witty for me to say them. And I often held myself back from saying something that I wanted to say. So the solution to this issue of filtering yourself is that you have to sort of become aware of it, first of all, and you have to lower the bar of what you find okay to say. You have to understand that most people are perfectly fine carrying a conversation, talking to someone who is another regular everyday person. You don't have to be some kind of entertainer. You don't have to be witty all the time. And when you overcome your feelings of inferiority and your insecurities, when you can accept yourself more fully and become more comfortable with yourself, then it's going to be easier to feel like, yeah, people can like me just for me. And it's okay for me to just express what I'm thinking without me needing to impress them by being some kind of amazing conversationalist. Keep in mind that most people won't remember the majority of what you said anyway. If you think back to a conversation you had last week with someone, even if you two talked for about an hour, chances are that person has already forgotten 95% of what you said. And mostly what they've remembered is the way that they felt when they were talking to you, but they can't remember any of the actual words that you said. So that's one mindset shift to overcome filtering, is realizing that any one comment that you say really isn't that important. And what's the most important thing, if you're more shy or quiet now, is not in saying the perfect thing, it's just in speaking up more often. Another key is that by practicing speaking up more often, by overcoming that block that you feel to saying something when a lot of people are listening, the more that you can do that, the more that you can just express what you're thinking without filtering it, the easier it's going to get over time, because you're building up a muscle of impulsivity. Let me just make sure I make this totally clear here. When you practice putting a comment out there, when you think of something to say, and instead of censoring it, instead of holding back, you actually speak it out loud, the more often that you do that, the easier it's going to get to act in this more impulsive way in the future. Alright, so lower the bar, speak more impulsively, and try not to filter what you say so much, and you'll be able to talk to people much more easily. Now, the second reason why you might run out of things to say actually has to do with your psychology and with your feeling of anxiety or nervousness. One thing most people don't realize is that when you're feeling nervous inside, your body and mind actually enter something called a fight or flight mode. And so basically when you feel emotions like anxiety or nervousness, your brain thinks that there's some kind of danger out in the environment that's causing you to feel nervous. It's kind of like a warning signals going off in your body when you feel nervous. So when this warning signal is going off and when you enter this fight or flight mode, a lot of your body and brain's functions actually change. So I'm sure you've noticed that if you feel nervous, you often get physical symptoms of that nervousness. For example, when you feel nervous, you probably find that your heart might start beating faster, or maybe you start to sweat more than you usually would. Maybe your palms get cold and sweaty, or maybe your armpits get sweaty. Or maybe if you're feeling very nervous, like if you have to do a speech in front of a lot of people, your hands might start even shaking. So all these are physical symptoms of this fight or flight response. And they happen because when that warning signal is going off in your brain, your brain is actually flooding your entire body with different chemicals like adrenaline. It's redirecting the flow of your blood to make it easier for you to run away quickly in case there's some kind of danger nearby. And the symptoms don't just affect your body, they also affect your brain and the way that your brain works. So when you feel nervous, the fight or flight response actually shuts down some of the higher level functioning of your brain. So you have different areas of your brain. There's the frontal area, the prefrontal cortex, which allows you to be more creative. It allows you to have complex ideas. And then there's the part of your brain more near your spinal cord, which has to do with emotions like fear, survival, and so on. So when you're feeling nervous, your brain actually redirects, it focuses more on those emotions of fear, because the most important thing is to get away from danger safely or to fight it. And it can't use that more creative part of your brain as much. So when you feel nervous, it's actually harder to access that more creative, complex, higher level functioning part of your brain, which is my theory of why a lot of people who feel nervous in social situations often, can't think of what to say. Literally, if I think back to situations when I felt nervous in social situations, it's like my brain started to think completely differently, and like literally nothing would come into my mind to talk about. And, it took me a while to figure out that this was actually caused by the feeling of nervousness and the fight or flight response. Another example of this is students who study for an exam and then they feel really nervous, going into the exam, and then they do really bad on the exam despite studying and doing really well all year. It's because their nervousness actually shut down some of the higher level functioning of their brain, so they couldn't do as well as if they had been relaxed. So obviously the cure to this, the way to get out of the fight or flight response and to feel less nervous and less anxious, is to focus on relaxation. You need to put some focus on doing actual practical techniques to relax your body whenever you're feeling nervous. And I've already taught you a couple of these techniques. If you go back to the last module, in the video on nonverbal communication, I talked about deep breathing and about muscle relaxation. See, a lot of people who feel nervous often forget to breathe, or they breathe in a very shallow way, which just makes your body feel more nervous. And, people who feel anxious, their body will often lock up their muscles. It'll tense up their muscles as a defense mechanism. So especially the muscles around your neck, your chest, your stomach, your shoulders, really your whole body. So whenever you're feeling nervous or anxious, focus on that deep breathing. Use the instructions I told you before, and focus on relaxing your body physically, almost to the point of making it completely limp. When you do this, you'll be able to, over time, unwire the fight or flight response that happens when you're talking to an attractive girl. And over time, you'll slowly become more and more relaxed and comfortable in situations like talking to a girl or in any other social situation. When you are feeling more relaxed and physically comfortable in these situations, and when you learn how to turn off that fight or flight response, I'm sure you're going to find it a lot easier to think up of what to say. Make sense? Alright, and the third reason why people run out of things to say is because you might be trying to come up with things to say out of thin air instead of asking the right questions, listening, and using the answers that she gives you to continue the conversation. So this is really more about knowing the right techniques and having the right types of social skills in order to talk to people in a way that is easy and natural. And this third issue is basically what I'm going to talk about in this video. I'll spend the rest of this video showing you some simple techniques that you can use in order to be able to talk to people and carry a conversation with ease. So now, how would you like to actually enjoy conversations? Well, if you pay careful attention to this next tip, you'll be able to always know what to say next to people. This simple trick will allow you to enjoy long, interesting, and flowing conversations with people easily and effortlessly, using a technique I call conversation threading. So what is conversation threading? Well, I've explained it to people before. If you've bought my shyness and social anxiety system, then you might have heard me talk about it before. But I definitely want to cover it again because this is a very, very useful technique. So here's one way to think of conversation threading. You can imagine a conversation as being like a tree with many branches. And every time someone says something to you, their sentence has many threads you can pick to respond to. So let me give you an example. Imagine if someone said to you, "I saw Bob at the mall last Saturday." So what you need to do is look for the key words inside the sentence. These key words are what I call threads. In this example, the key words or threads would be Bob, mall, and Saturday. Threads are words that contain a single subject, topic, or idea in them. So you just have to pay attention to these threads and ignore the filler words in between. Do you see how simple this is? So you just pick one of these threads and then you say something about it. So if you pick the thread Bob, you could say, "I think Bob made the school football team." Or if you picked mall, you could say, "Did you see that new bookstore they opened at the mall?" So you simply look for the threads or keywords in what people say to you, and then you pick one and you say something about it. And every time they reply, or every time the girl replies to you, you can just quickly go through this technique again. You just look for the threads in what she said again, you pick one, and then you say something about it. And by doing this, you'll always have something to say next. See, the reason why you may get a blank mind or run out of things to say in conversations is because you think that you have to be a creative or an interesting person to talk to people well. Wrong. Now you can relax and take that pressure off yourself, because there's no reason for you to try to think of what to say out of thin air, when all you really have to do is look for the threads or keywords and use what people give you. Now I'm sure you can see how useful and life-changing this simple technique can be for you. Just imagine what your life will look like when conversations become something you enjoy by using conversation threading. You'll never have to worry about running out of things to say or creating an awkward silence. You'll experience new confidence knowing you can basically talk to someone forever if you wanted to. It's amazing how many awesome benefits come from simply knowing this conversation threading technique. This is something I make sure to teach all my students, and now you know it too. So that was conversation threading. I want to explain that technique to you really quickly. And the way I think about conversation threading is I think about it as being almost like training wheels for making conversations. So if you're a guy who has a lot of difficulty carrying a conversation now, you can use conversation threading as a simple framework to be able to always know what to say next. And when I started using it, it helped me so much. Like, I went from a guy who could barely talk to people, and then by just looking for the threads and commenting on them, I was able to start talking to people for, an hour, 2 hours. It was incredible, the difference. And over time, as you get more experience in talking to people or talking to girls, then I'm sure what you'll find, and what I found, is that conversation threading is going to be more subconscious. You're just going to start to do it automatically, and sometimes you won't even need to do it, or you won't even need to follow the technique that much, because it's going to become automatic and subconscious. So that's really your eventual goal, but until you reach that, you can use the technique. You can follow the technique consciously in order to get better at talking to people in the meantime. Now I'm going to cover a few more tips that are going to help you make conversations much better. So the first tip is to use open-ended questions. See, what a lot of guys who are bad at making conversations do is they ask too many close-ended questions. Close-ended questions can be answered with a yes, a no, or any other one-word response. And when you ask too many close-ended questions, it can start to feel like to the girl like you're interviewing her. So for example, a lot of guys walk up to girls and they ask them, what's your name? She says, Sarah. And then he asks her another question like, where are you from? She says, Detroit. And then he asks her another question like, what do you do? She says, I'm a psychologist. Then he asks her another close-ended question like, what are you doing in this city? Or he asks her, do you come here often? And asking a ton of close-ended questions isn't a very good conversation. What you want to do instead is you want to focus on asking more open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are questions that demand a longer, more in-depth reply. So they don't usually get a yes or a no or another one-word response. And open-ended questions make it much easier for the girl to contribute more and for her to reply with a few sentences, which makes it a lot easier for you to then, carry the conversation on from her reply. So I'll give you a practical example now. Imagine you're talking to a girl and she mentions that she went traveling to Paris. A close-ended question would be something like, did you like Paris? And to that question, the girl can reply yes or no. Or she could say, it was okay. Very short replies. On the other hand, if you ask her a question like, what did you like about Paris? She can't answer that question with a simple yes or a no. She has to talk more about exactly what she did like about Paris. See, so open-ended questions usually sound like, what did you like about this? Or you could ask her why. Like, if she says that she likes to snowboard, you could ask her, oh, why do you like that? And then, she'll answer more. This is really, really important because so many guys kill conversations and they create awkward silences because they ask too many close-ended questions. If a girl just replies to you with a yes or a no, it's a lot harder for you to know what to say next. On the other hand, if you ask her an open-ended question and she gives you a longer reply, her reply probably has a lot of keywords or threads that you can then use to make a comment, or you could even ask her another question about. The next tip I have for you is to use statements. So even though open-ended questions are great, they're much better than close-ended questions, statements are even better than asking a question. So whenever possible, you should take whatever question that you have and try to turn it into a statement or an observation about her. So going back to the example I just talked about, if a girl mentions that she went to Paris, a question that you could ask is, what did you like about Paris? But you could also turn that into a statement and tell her, you sound like you really enjoyed Paris. And if you make a statement like this, then the funny thing is she'll probably give you a more in-depth reply anyway. She'll probably say, yeah, I did. I enjoyed going to this place and that place and so on and so forth. See, this is something that took me a while to realize. A lot of people who are great at making conversations speak mostly in statements. And most normal people, most people who have decent social skills, will contribute to the conversation even if you say your open-ended question as a statement. And even if you get a short reply to a statement, for example, if the girl's more shy or she's more introverted herself, then you could always add the question after. So for example, if you stated, you sound like you really enjoyed Paris, and she gives you a short reply like, yes, or yeah, I did, or no, I didn't, then you could always add on that open-ended question after by saying, oh, what did you like about it? Statements are really, really, really great because a lot of girls are so used to guys walking up and asking her a lot of questions about herself that to many girls it often feels like every question is like the guy is trying to take something from her. So if you can make statements more than questions, it's going to feel like a breath of fresh air, like you're not trying to get anything from her and you're just putting something out there, you're just putting your comment out there. For example, when I first approach a girl, here's a tip for approaching. I'll often try to speak more in statements than in questions. So I'll take all those questions that most guys ask at the beginning, and I'll turn them into statements or observations about her. So for example, while most guys might walk up and near the beginning of the conversation, they might ask a girl, "What do you do?" or "Where are you from?" I'll turn those questions into statements. So instead of asking her, "What do you do?" I might say, "You look like a creative type of person, like maybe you're a graphic designer." Or instead of asking her, "Where are you from?" I might guess. I might say, "You look like you're from New York." Or "You look like you grew up on a farm for some reason." And by making these statements, I found that the conversation is usually able to launch much more easily. And the funny thing is, she'll answer the question anyway. If I tell a girl, if I tell a girl, "You look like you're maybe an accountant, like a business person," then she'll either laugh and she'll say, "No, no, I'm not at all. Why did you think that?" Or I might get lucky and she'll say, "Yeah, how did you know?" Right? So she'll answer the question anyway, even if I say it as a statement. And it's a much better way to talk to people, especially at the beginning. So whenever possible, try to reword your questions into statements or observations about her, and I'm sure you'll find that conversations are going to flow much more easily. A lot of guys will ask me, what exactly do I talk about to a girl? Well, the answer is that there's really no one perfect topic to talk about. If I think back, almost every conversation I've had with a girl in the past, we talked about different things depending on what she's interested in, what I'm interested in, if we have any common interests, what I felt like talking about at the moment, and so on and so forth. So, it's always different. But there are some good default topics that you can use. For example, if you can talk about her family or what she does with her friends, or you could ask her about her job or what she does for fun, or you could talk about dreams. So, what would she like to do in the future? What would you like to do in the future? Any of these topics are pretty good for talking to girls, especially in the connection phase of the conversation. It's also good to have some default questions that you ask to girls when you're getting to know them. Two good generic questions that you can ask is, what do you do for fun, or what do you like? I'll use the first question very, very often to almost every girl I talk to. At some point, I'll ask her, what do you do for fun? And her answer to that question will often tell me a lot about her. But you should really come up with your own default questions based on your own interests and what you're actually curious to know about her. So if you like to travel, you could ask her a question like, do you like to travel? If you like to read, you could ask her, what was your favorite last book that you read? Or if you like music, you could ask her about that. When you have something in common on the surface, it's an easy way to launch the conversation. So in the beginning, you can ask simple, generic questions like, what do you do for fun? Until you hit on a topic that she can talk about very easily. And what I found is that people can often talk for hours about a topic that they're deeply interested in. So it's really important to have this mindset of being genuinely interested and curious about who she is as a person. What does she find important? What does she value? And if you try to do this before getting her attracted to you, then it's not going to work. You'll just be another random guy who's like trying to get to know her just because she's attractive. So first you need to obviously give her a reason to be attracted. Show off part of your personality using the techniques that I talked about last week. And then you become curious about getting to know her. If you try to do this before, then you might just turn into her friend. You'll land into the friend zone. But after she's attracted, she'll be a lot more eager to get to know you and she'll want to answer all your questions about who she is. See, there's something that you should try to understand. If some girl that you weren't attracted to, maybe you thought she was ugly or she was very fat or just too old, if she walked up to you and she started trying to get to know you because she wanted to turn you into her boyfriend and you didn't want this, then you'd probably just be annoyed by her trying to get to know you. So before you try to get to know a girl, you need to sort of give her a reason to be attracted, and then it's gonna be super easy to make her interested in forming this connection with you. So far I've talked about how you can carry a conversation, how you can make conversations more flowing and avoid awkward silences by using open-ended questions and statements. And I also talked a little bit about how you can find surface-level commonalities with the girl. And this is what a lot of guys try to do. Many guys try to form commonalities with the girl they like based on surface topics. So, for example, a lot of guys who don't have much experience with girls often think that if they have the same taste in music, or they like the same books or the same TV shows as a girl, that means that they have some kind of connection. But just because you know someone's hobbies or interests or some background information about them doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't mean that you have a connection. It doesn't mean that you really understand her as a person. So when you find these surface topics of what she does for fun, it's important that you use these topics as a bridge to get to deeper emotional topics. So you need to know how to get off of simply doing small talk, which is often very boring, and dig into her deeper values, preferences, feelings, and motivations about those surface level topics. And I'll give you a couple examples of exactly what I mean right now. And these examples, which I'm going to explain to you now, are extremely similar to my conversations and what I often do in the connection phase or the connection stage of talking to a girl that I like. So if I ask a girl that I like, what do you do? And she says, I'm a dentist. Or let's say she says, I'm studying to be a dentist. Then what I'll do most of the time is I'll go deeper into it. I'll ask her a question like, what do you like about it? And then she might say, I like to work with people. And then I might kind of like poke around her answer, or I might restate her answer. So I would say, so you can never do a job that makes you work by yourself? And then she'll say, no, I'd get so bored with nobody to talk to. See, so notice how much more you can know someone when you know how to dig deeper, and when you know how to ask the questions of why do you like it, going from the surface level into the preference, why she picked the job, why she likes to work with people, and so on and so forth. Or another example, let's say you ask a girl, what do you do for fun? And she says, watch Star Trek. Now, what a lot of guys would do at this point is they would think about what they know about Star Trek, and they would say something like, oh, did you see that movie that came out a couple months ago? Or, oh, did you see this thing that happened with Spock? You know, they would try to stick to that surface level topic, and this is a big mistake. What you need to do is you need to take that surface level topic and you need to dig deeper. So you could ask her a question like, why do you like Star Trek? And sometimes, especially if you haven't talked to her that long yet, she might just give you a short answer. So she might say, oh, I don't know, it's cool. And that really doesn't tell you much. What I've found is it's useful if I get a short reply like that to kind of poke deeper and just be curious about her. So I might say something like, well, there must be some specific reason why you like Star Trek more than other TV shows. And then the girl might actually open up and give me the real reason. So she might say something like, well, they talk about real issues and questions about life instead of, gossiping about celebrities, or simply shooting people like most action movies. See, so when you're in the connection phase, you need to get off of the surface level topic and find out what that says about her. This is something that most guys, even most introverts, really don't do. So when you're able to do this, you can really get to know her on a deep level within a couple hours. Whenever she tells you something, like if she says, I like to snowboard, or I like reading this type of book, or and so on and so forth, your mind will probably automatically try to think of, what do I know about this? And, what kind of information do I know that I can tell her about this? Instead of doing that, try to find out what that topic says about her. And if you can do this, if you can ask questions like why, or why do you like it, what do you like about it, things like that, and you can sort of get her to reveal her values, her deep preferences, her feelings about things, her motivations in life. She's gonna get to feel as if you really, really know her. And here's why this is so important. This might be one of the best pieces of information I'm going to give you in this whole module, so you might want to write this down. People feel connected to you not by how much they know about you, but by how much they think you know about them. So this is why when I'm on a date, or when I'm talking to a girl in the connection stage, I'll often try to speak as little as possible, and I'll really put the emphasis on her talking, at least 70% of the time, because I know that it's very important that she feels as if I know her. Once she's attracted, it's much more important to accomplish that than it is to try to keep trying to tell her impressive things about yourself. And of course, keep in mind that when you are on a date with a girl, or when you're talking to a girl, even when you're in the connection stage of the conversation, it doesn't have to be super deep and like a heart-to-heart conversation like 100% of the time. It can be a little more light and playful sometimes, but there definitely should be moments when you are strategically digging deep into finding out who she is as a person.